I was asked to do an assignment that captured my feelings about nature or my perspectives on the environment. And looking out my window, I see a lot of trees. However, they're not actually the trees and the environment or the nature that I experienced growing up overseas in Thailand. And so what I'm going to do in this video is to demonstrate how I recapture that nature millions of miles away right here in Somerville, Massachusetts. The second ingredient is ginger. Ginger has been known to be very, very medicinal, and in Vietnamese culture they believe it's kind of like it's got a very hot kind of a feel to it. It sort of warms your body up, especially when you're eating hot soup on a cold day. And you will need an onion and also some limes. Of course, ideally these would be picked off a tree in your backyard to make them local, but of course you can go to Chinatown or whatever to get them here. So basically what you're going to do is to get a huge pot of boiling water. So put water in a pot and start it boiling, and then you get some spices and put them in a pan. And basically this is sticks of cinnamon, some cloves, some anise, little coriander seeds, and this is broken up nutmeg. So you're going to put them in a pan, and then add the onion and the ginger. This is a peeled onion right here, and this is the ginger, and you're going to stick the pan in a really hot oven, 350 or 400. Alright, well, once the water is completely boiling, you'll add the spices. Hopefully, you know, when the spices are in the oven, you can smell the smell, and that's how you know when they're done. So you'll stick the spices into the boiling water, but keep the onion and the ginger. And also, besides the spices, add the chicken. It's a whole chicken. And now, you know, some people will say, well, how's this eco-friendly? Well, this is one issue that I'm raising with eco-culturism. It's the idea that if I'm normally a vegetarian, except when I eat this soup. So like 29 days out of the month I'm a vegetarian, except when I eat the soup, maybe once a month. And the point is that, do I give up the soup? Because basically by giving up the soup, I'm giving up my whole identity. So anyway, you stick the chicken in there. And related to that point is the idea of fish sauce. I mean, fish sauce is totally imported. You waste all this energy importing it here. Actually, in Vietnam, when you buy it, it's a very locally based ingredient. It's made of anchovies, which is a local, you know, small fish from the area. But once you import it to the United States, it becomes, you know, very inefficient in terms of environmental issues. But then, you know, this is the issue that I'm raising. It's a complexity as part of the eco-cultural issue, is that you need to maintain your identity and also be environmentally friendly. But anyway, hopefully your chicken is an organic chicken, so, or local chicken for that matter. And then once you stick the chicken in and it's boiling, these onions need to be further heated up and burned somehow. So this is how I do it. Usually they do it on a charcoal stove, you know, squatting, but you know, here in America we don't have charcoal stoves, so you can just heat it up over the fire until there's little burnt patches. While the chicken's boiling, you should really scoop off the scummy bits, because the soup is considered not good if it's not absolutely clear. So it should be very, very clear and crystal clear. That's the whole idea. And hopefully by this time you'll be smelling the wonderful aroma of those combined spices. So while the chicken is boiling, you can set the table. Basically, you'll need 2 bowls and chopsticks and this kind of a spoon to capture the soup. And you can prepare a little plate of cut up lime and also your basil. And what I'd like you to notice is that cooking pho is not really a science. There isn't a recipe. I didn't tell you how much water to put in or exactly how many, cloves to stick in. Basically, it's an art. You can tell when are you going to get the chicken done when it's done. It's also a resistance against the Western sense of structured time. I don't know when the chicken's going to be done. I'm just going to wait until it's done and then that's when I'll eat it. And similarly the spices in the oven. I don't know how many minutes it was, and none of this recipe hasn't been written down in my family. It's been passed on like that, and if you ever asked any little old grandmother in Vietnam for a recipe for this, she'd sort of look at you and go, what? What's a recipe? It's sort of something, so I think the act of cooking this kind of food is a political act because it resists the dominant mainstream culture, and in many ways it's a kind of countercultural. It's a countercultural kind of an act, and in that way, in many ways, it is very much part of the environmental movement because it's an act of resistance against the mainstream. Okay. Once the chicken is done, you take it out and you take all the meat off the bone, and then you put the bone back into the soup so that the bone marrow can soak into the soup. My mom always used to say the bone marrow is probably the best part of the chicken. And in fact, if she gets a bone like this, she just eats the whole bone. Like, she doesn't leave it. That's the thing about eco-culturism, is that when you start to look at what traditional cultures do, you realize that they don't waste anything. In fact, my mom eats the feet, the beak even, the eyes of the chicken. She'll eat the innards, and she can basically eat the whole chicken. So that's what eco-culturism is. It's about appreciating every single bit of what you're eating and not wasting it. Like Americans, they throw away the heart of the chicken, when in fact, the heart of the chicken is the most delicious part of the chicken. Anyway, besides the chicken, you're going to want to boil some of these noodles. But also, I think another part of eco-culturism is noticing where your ingredients are coming from and not trying to just stick to what's most authentic. There was a news article several years ago about how Vietnamese companies were making these rice noodles with formaldehyde in order to preserve their freshness, and you don't want to put that into your body, no matter how authentic it is. So even though these are not Vietnamese noodles, they're probably better for your body, and I think that's what eco-culturalism is about. It's about not taking the authentic Vietnameseness to the extreme, but to be practical and realistic, and also, very understanding that sometimes you're going to have to do things that are not authentic in order to be more authentic. So finally, you can arrange the chicken and the noodles in a bowl. Usually you don't put spinach in it, but I put spinach in it because I think eco-culturism is about adapting to new cultures and also making foods more healthier if you can, so I added spinach. But anyway, just to end, I think identity is always linked to your senses, to sight, smell, sound, taste, and you can't get rid of those things at any point, otherwise you lose a sense of who you are. And so I think eco-culturism is about maintaining environmental integrity while also being able to hold fast to your own cultural values, cultural traditions, and also in the act take part in the whole resistance